Welcome to the first episode of Writing with Authors. I'm your host, Vincent A. Lanci.
Hey, Vincent Todd Palmer here. I am excited to be chosen. I'm like Neo. I feel like the chosen one to be the very first one to get through the matrix of your first podcast featuring authors.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. For those of you who don't know my story, I'm a three-time published author, and a passion of mine is writing. Also, as a mental health advocate, I know the benefits that it does for me in that lane. So, as a writer, as an entrepreneur, I'm always looking to help people because people are always looking to help me in that entrepreneurial circle. So now my goal with this show will to be inspire future writers, inspire current writers, and also share the great work that my guests bring on the show. Todd's been up to some great stuff. He's already on another book, and we're going to learn all about his story. But Todd, would you mind please giving our audience a quick introduction without giving away too much of your writing endeavors?
Sure. So I was a CEO for over 25 years. In that journey of entrepreneurship, I started literally with next to nothing. Started my company for about $15,000. I was in the recruiting space in Detroit, Michigan. And over about a 10-year period, we were still in business, which when I look back on is sometimes still shocking because I'd gotten the business $600,000 in debt. So to compare and contrast it, we had about a $2 million run rate. So we were incredibly upside down. Um, it was September 2006. I was about 60 days away from running out of all of my money. The bank had put a call on the note. They were going to take my house, and my son and I were about to be homeless. For a long time, my itty bitty shitty committee inside of my head was telling me that I wasn't enough. I didn't know what I was doing. And now this calling of the bank notes kind of validated that. So for the first time in my 10-year journey as an entrepreneur, I finally raised my hand and I got help and I hired a coach. From that, over the next 8 years, we got out of $600,000 in debt. This changed the way we hired people because I believe that every problem in business stems from one source, people. So we went from hiring experienced recruiters, experienced HR people, to hiring people for their DNA, not their resume. And we grew that business over that period to make the INC5000 one of the fastest growing companies in America, an amazing 6 times. From the very bottoms of the mountain to hopefully the very heights of the mountain, I learned quite a bit, and I share a lot of that in my new book, From Suck to Success: A Guide to Extraordinary Entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I remember being so inspired by your story originally when we connected on that entrepreneur show. Todd joined me maybe season 3 or so, I'd say 4. We're finishing up season 7 now. So if you're interested in entrepreneurship, you could head to vincentalanci.com and check out those episodes. And I liked what you said there about hiring for the right DNA as we move into this new age. Education isn't as supremely valued to what you are as a person, what skills you have. So I like what you touched there. Although as a career learner, as an MBA grad, as a finance grad, it is about what you can bring to the table. You touched on your latest book, excuse me. Let's hear more about it.
Well, this book really came out of about 5 years worth of work. I know when people hear shows where people are authors, they talk to the masters of the craft, the Stephen Kings, who write every morning for 2 hours. I couldn't discipline myself to do that, or my work process just didn't work that way. So I'd written my first book, and that came out in 2015, The Job Search Process: How to Land a Great Job in 6 weeks or less. And that was really from the perspective of how can I take the 20 plus years as a recruiter, repackage that, and give it to a different audience. So really, how do I help kids getting their first job out of high school or college? This book was really for me, for that entrepreneur who was in chaos and crisis, that entrepreneur who was struggling so much with trying to be all things to all people all the time. An entrepreneur who would watch Shark Tank, would think, oh my gosh, these people really have their act together. I'm completely winging this, and in the process of that, what am I going to do? So, I thought, I wish when I had started, there would have been a book to help me figure out where to begin, how to scale my business, yet I'm feeling suffocated by the next steps. When I pivot the business, all I keep doing is pivoting into a new wall versus pivoting into opportunity. I ultimately found myself stuck. And so I had to, with through the help of my coach, figure out how to get unstuck. And the first thing it was changing my mindset. And the first 4 chapters of the book are how do we deal with the mindset of an entrepreneur. And then the second half of the book is once we crack that code inside of ourselves with the tips and tools that are given, then how do we take action against that shift in mindset to get us to a new level of success.
Yeah, and that second part, as we followed up before the show, a lot of tactical advice in there. And did you always have aspirations to becoming a published author? You had all this great business experience. You did incredible things, making a prestigious list with Inc. Was this something you always wanted to do?
Great question. So my background, believe it or not, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a writer and I wanted to be a journalist. So I graduate from high school. I have two choices. I can go play Division III basketball, or I had gotten what they call a talent scholarship for writing to the local community college. I was, the product of a single parent household at that time. My father had passed away. My parents didn't get divorced, and my mom was, the typical working mom, barely making ends meet. And it was kind of the first big adult decision I needed to make. Of, all right, I'm probably not going to get any taller. I'm probably not going to get any faster. I do not see an NBA career for me ahead, and so that it required some self awareness. And so I thought,
Very
well,
important.
I could potentially be a writer. So I took this opportunity. What I found was that as soon as there was a quote unquote financial incentive tied to my writing, I got very defiant about it, which is that was really interesting. I didn't I did what I needed to do to keep my scholarship, but I found that my love for the craft and the creation really waned. So I stopped writing in about 1993.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2013. I'm sitting with a group of peers. I'm part of a group called EO, and we do a forum meeting every month, kind of like a mastermind on steroids. And one of my forum mates got tired of me saying, if kids just knew this, and if kids just do this, and if universities would help in this way, and if high school guidance counselors would help in this way, we wouldn't have this problem of all these kids who don't know how to find a job. This is ridiculous. Someone needs to do something about it. And he said, put up or shut up. Either get your book done, or I'll bet you X dollar, and if you don't get it done, you've got to pay me. Which that was, sometimes the best laid deliverables are from the worst ideas.
Yep.
And so that's how I got irritated. So like my pride was challenged, and so I sat down and I wrote the book in about 2 months. Took another couple months to edit it, and then it came out.
I mean, that's great to hear that you had writing inspirations as a kid, then you finally followed through with it. Life gets in the way sometimes of all of our original aspirations, but I'm sure it was especially meaningful to let that book go. But now I have to ask, what prompted number two?
So, well, the first thing was with number one, I got it done so quickly. So I thought, okay, I can get the second one done so quickly. And I found I couldn't, because, and this is what I've learned over the course of time, when I was writing the book, The Job Search Process, I was doing a knowledge transfer of accumulated experiences of being of service and help to others. When I was working on From Suck to Success, I was telling a lot of my story. And then which caused me to look deeper within. Because when I do that, there's parts that, frankly, I'm not very proud of, parts of me that I'm not super excited to share, but those are some of the best learning opportunities. So I had to get very comfortable looking inside, and that took time, because ultimately I wanted the book to be of service to others. I wanted the book to kind of stand out a little left of center, more of a Mark Manson type of book for anybody who loves the subtle art of not giving a. And I didn't necessarily want to be prescriptive and just teach a process. There are plenty of great process books. There's
Yeah.
Traction, there's Scaling Up, there's other business books for process. What I wanted to identify and help that leader who maybe had a process and they weren't following it, or who knew they should change their business. They knew they should change some of their relationships and they couldn't do it. That was the person I wanted to appeal to, which meant I had to really show up in a very authentic, transparent, and vulnerable way. And that took a little while to get going.
I give you a lot of respect for sharing your vulnerable moments, the moments where you had that humility, because those are the moments, like you said, where the greatest learning opportunities is. And as you were on my podcast, you shared a lot of moments as well on there. And the goal with those shows is to really let people know that you're not the only one going through that. These
Right,
difficult times,
exactly.
Todd putting this in a book now.
It's been really rewarding, and so I'm stuck. We'll flash forward. I'm
Yeah.
about March of 2020. I was going to be on 6 different stages in 3 different countries speaking on this topic. My book was kind of sitting over on the sidelines. I was kind of working on it, but it was kind of a catch as catch can. Within 2 weeks, all of my stages were canceled, and I all of a sudden had an abundance of free time. Well, what do I do with that free time? And I really, there were a couple of days I was really bummed out, but then it really dawned on me, why do I do all this? Why do I coach? Why do I speak? Well, it's to be of service to others. And when I'm of service to others, what I get in return is I get the joy of improving lives. Why is improving lives so important to me? When I did my work with Simon Sinek a dozen years ago to figure out what my why was, 2 years to figure out 2 words, improve lives. It dawned on me that I can improve lives from anywhere. And so I started practicing. I go to the grocery store and I have a conversation with somebody and like, oh, thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I then went on a kind of this international video Zoom tour where I worked with 42 CEOs in 67 days volunteering and to help them get them unstuck when the pandemic hit. And I just kept polishing the process and polishing the process.
Mhm.
And I doubled down on what I knew worked well for me. It was about 80% done with the book. I called up a friend of mine who's in the publishing space. Says, who's the best collaborator you know? He put me in touch with Sarah. Sarah used to work at Time Magazine. Sarah used to work for the Olympics. So she's written for people who are a lot more probably demanding than I am. And she helped me craft the story to serve the audience. What was the crazy part about the tragedy of COVID? For someone like me, I decided to look for the opportunity there. And the opportunity there was to tell some of those 42 stories in the book as well. So the book, I think, has a lot of relevancy for any leaders, any CEOs, any entrepreneurs who not only have the mindset issues, but also, so a lot of my mindset issues were because of choices and decisions I made. So my struggles were because of me. When COVID happens to us, it's pushed down to us. Well, how do
Right.
we pivot that to us, to a for us mindset to get through it? And so she was really that advocate for the reader. So the stories were able to have that tonality to them to hopefully give a great reader experience.
You made a ton of great, very similar story with me. When my first book came out, Left for Dead, I researched the top mental health influencers in the country to try to make a difference with, collaborate, try to bring my brand up a little bit. Put numbers game. I reached out to about 30, heard back from maybe 7, got to interact with 3 or 4 of them on my shows, on their shows. One was Dr. Denise McDermott, networking to get it done. Through that networking funnel, being on each other's shows, she then introduced me to the illustrator for this book, Chris Bridge, who like your collaboration, very talented. She's with the Barbara Bush Foundation, done work with Whole Foods. So the power of networking for everybody watching this is real. And you also outsource. So you said you're 80% done, double down your strengths, and then you outsource the rest. Explain why you chose to do that for everybody.
Because I needed to get it done. I was getting a lot of momentum. My coaching practice grew 300% during
Incredible.
the pandemic, which was very rewarding that I could be such a resource for people. But that also creates a capacity problem because there's only one of me to go around.
Uh-huh.
And if my goal, my BHAG is to improve lives, well, if I'm at capacity and I can't take on any more clients, how else can I do that? Well, I can write a book and I get that message out there and people can pick up on that. I've been challenged recently by some people who want to engage me. Would I be interested in creating a high level mastermind program for them? And I've shared a couple preview copies of the book, and this person said, hey, I think there's 8 chapters. I think you can make a mastermind of all 8 chapters. It'd be an hour of your time. He goes, I will facilitate it for you. You just show up. I'll pay you a fee for an hour of your time, and we can get X number of people in the room, and then I will be happy to then kind of guide them through some of your steps and processes, and you can come in and hold them accountable. I do 2 things probably better than a lot of other people. I'm really good at helping people be very uncomfortable for their growth, and the second thing is I'm really good at holding them accountable to what they say they want. So we're in conversations about that, because at the end of the day, if I can be of service to hundreds and thousands of people via different platforms and different reach outs, whether it's podcasts, whether it's books, whether it's one-on-one coaching, whether it's mastermind groups or what have you, I'm not here forever. Time is finite.
Yeah.
I think you of all people probably know that better than most.
Yeah.
Time is finite. How can I leave a big wake to make a difference in a time right now where there's so much disconnection and a lot of fracture within our business communities and in our families.
Thank you for sharing such a thorough answer. As far as things get busy, don't just leave the project you work so hard to do. Find a way to pivot and make it happen. In his case, he went with networking and found someone who was at the top of their game to bring his project to the top of the game. I think it goes without saying, if anybody has a project that they're looking to get advice on or feedback from, reach out to people in your network. Everybody is happy to help people and help them grow. So that's great advice. Now, speaking of advice, what two pieces of advice can you give our fellow authors that are tuning in?
So the first thing is know why you do what you do. Know why you write. It's it's a very underappreciated skill set in my experience, and people think it's super easy to do. I've got a friend of mine. He's now written 18 books. He's been doing this for 26 years. This week, I'm so proud of him. I'll tell everybody, his name is Joe Bastian. He writes a book series called the Folk Teller series. Think of kind of Harry Potter in the United States. And he just got a TV deal. His
Amazing.
books are now going to move into the TV space. When he and I talk about it, and I really get him going on why he does what he does, his energy changes. His eyes light up. He starts telling the he cannot not tell stories. Enjoys entertaining people, and and by far he has been my biggest champion during this book process because, hand to God, I've wanted to quit many times because like this is really hard. So anybody who wants to write a book, recognize and realize that you got to know why you want to do it. And once I got into the why of why I wanted to impact so many people, a lot of good things started happening for me. The second thing I would tell you is find someone who has written books, not someone who's just, kind of dabbled in a book. So I found someone who had written 18 books and he became my champion, and I would bounce ideas off of him. And I have no problem showing this. So the cover of the book, he contributed some of the cover imaging ideas. He was like, well, when I hear the title, this is what I think of. And like, I don't see it. He was like, hang on a minute. Let me send you some mock-ups of what I'm thinking. That is true. One, that's great friendship. We need people to believe in us sometimes too. We all have
Right
sometimes a
on.
struggle of confidence. So if I can plug into his confidence, and the flip of it is when he's doing a business deal and it's something maybe outside of his level of experience, and I've done hundreds of deals over the course of my career, they're like, this doesn't feel right to me. What do you think? I'm like, dude, Hollywood's trying to take advantage of you. Let's talk about how you can pivot. So it's a friendship that has grown over a decade. But I didn't just connect with somebody who's on Instagram and let me help you write your book kind of thing, who didn't have chops behind him. I connected with somebody who in my community who really like takes the art and the skill of writing super seriously, and he inspired me in my times when I couldn't get moving.
Great advice all around. Again, he found someone else at the top of their game because you want to learn if you're doing something, at least do it well, or why are you wasting your time doing it? A way to do that is by learning from people who are great what they do. People want to help people succeed. It's good you get joy, as he said, of people succeeding. I like how you also touched on that. It's not easy to write. Just because we know how to write doesn't mean it's easy to do a whole lot of it. And of course, Todd, know your why. You know my story. You know my why. Very, very important.
For sure. And going back to the part, it really does help to have other people who will critically look at your book.
Hmm.
My book that's come out, it's the eighth version of it. I've changed it, I've moved it, I've pivoted, I've grown through it. But also there's a point for, and Joe did teach me this, is that eventually you've got to let it out. You got to let it go. You got to let your
Been
baby.
there, man.
And so I thought he was kind of like, no, I got to keep, it's got to be quote unquote perfect. So I'm at the gym, and part of my process at the gym is when I'm on the bike, I watch podcasts, or I listen to podcasts, or I watch interviews with people I'm interested in from all walks of life, from business to sports to music to movies to entrepreneurship and thought leaders. So I'm listening to an interview with Paul McCartney from the Beatles, and I'm not embarrassed to say I'm 52 years old, and Paul McCartney is a pretty big deal to my generation. He's a Beatle. And he wrote more hit songs than anybody I've ever known. And he he writes songs, he performs songs. He's like the guy. And some interviewer who's having his fanboy moment says to him, Because every time yesterday comes on the radio or it comes through my playlist, I get so excited because I think it's the perfect song. When you hear Yesterday, do you just sit there and beam that you've written a perfect song? And McCartney, in his very nice way, says, "Well, I appreciate your kind words. I don't think it's a perfect song. There's two or three things I would still change about it." And that, to me, the learning lesson for his authenticity, because he could have been, "Thank you so much. Yes, I made $40 million off of Yesterday, and it's put my kids through college." He could have said that. He
Yeah.
said, meaning it's never done. It's never perfect for the creator. And once I kind of gave that, for me, it gave me freedom. So if Paul McCartney can put a classic into the world like the song Yesterday, I can put my book into the world, knowing that it's never going to be done up to where, because here's why it's never going to be done. I'm going to be getting new experiences. I'm going to have new coaching experiences. I'm going to get new coaching clients. I'm going to have new things to contribute, which my friend Joe said, he goes, "Well, that's just going to be your next book."
Every time you read a paragraph, you could change one sentence. You could change one way the word is. You could add a synonym because you're in your own head at this point. You think it could sound better. So I love how you shared that, because it certainly will resonate with almost everyone who listens to this. But I need you to now please take the time to share your contact info, website, any ways for our listeners to connect to your services, buy the books.
So the book will be coming out on February 9th of 2021 on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the main channels. If anybody wants to connect with me, this is what I always say to people. If you're thinking you should reach out, you should reach out. Here's why. You just don't know where the conversation is going to lead you. You don't know where the breakthrough moments you might have from something we do, a conversation we have for 30 minutes. So I always tell people, I'm happy to give anybody 30 minutes of my time for free. I've talked with people who, I've talked with kids who are still in high school. I've talked with CEOs. I've talked with solopreneurs. I talked to somebody who one time heard me on a show, and I so respected her. She had just lost everything, and she was currently living out of her car. And she needed to talk to somebody because she goes, "You inspired me on the podcast, and I just wanted to talk to you to see, one, if you were really this guy on the radio or on the podcast, and two, I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling very defeated by life, but I know that's just the lens I see it through. Can you help me see it differently?" And I spent like an hour with this young lady on the phone, and she's like, so grateful and so thankful. And she said, "Someday when I can afford you, I'm going to hire you as my coach," which was very warm. And I said, "Well, I'm here for you. Reach out anytime."
What it's all about, man.
We create relationships. So anybody who wants to reach out, I'm happy to give you 30 minutes of my time. My website is extraordinaryadvisors.com. My email is todd@extraordinaryadvisors.com.
Mhm.
And the joy for me is it gives me a chance to pay back all the coaches who've helped me by
I love
paying it
that.
forward through somebody who reaches out.
Couldn't agree with you more. I'm so grateful for the coach's role in my lives. And I think this is a great opportunity to share that CEOs at the biggest companies all have coaches. They have people they count on, support groups. So take their lead. Coaches are important. Todd, I have to thank you so much for being the first episode of this new platform, the inspiration you gave me to get this going. Be sure to stay on the lookout for his book and all the other great work he's doing. Thank you so much for joining me.
Vincent, thank you for the opportunity to spend this with you. I really appreciate you.